actually excited about this. I am actually excited about this. I have not read this book since like middle school. So I'm excited to read this because I remember when I read this for the first time, I remember being obsessed, as most people my age were. Wow. Wow. I truly don't really remember, like, this book. I mean, I remember the story, but I don't remember how it was written. And I know that, like, the book obviously has, like, more details in the movie. My mind, when it comes to Twilight and the Twilight series, my mind is just movie. Like, all I think about is the movie. I read this once and watched the movies about 1 million times. So, but yeah, we're gonna start. In my mind right now, there's a deer running through a forest. I don't know how. That's probably my food. It's about goddamn time. Starting it now. Let's read. I'm excited. I feel like I have a lot to say. I just finished chapter 2. I really don't like Bella. Why is she so pessimistic? There's a problem. She's got problems. I'd never given much thought to how I would die. Iconic. Surely it's a good way to die and replace someone I loved. Noble even. That ought to count for something. Copyright 2005. Holy shit. I definitely didn't read it in 2005. When did the first movie come out? It's 2008? Holy shit. It seems like so long ago. It was so long ago. 2008? It's 23 years ago. What did I say? 8. How many years did I say? I said 23. I don't know how to count. I'm in college. 15 years ago. Not 23. What kind of math did I just do in my head? 15 years ago, which is still a long time. Anyway, Bella's just really pessimistic. It's really annoying. The whole, like, calling her dad Charlie instead of Dad. Like, not to his face, but there's a moment where she goes, Dad. It's weird to me. Why? Just call him Dad. It's your dad. I mean, the only time I ever hear of that happening is, like, when there's, like, a really bad relationship between, like, a child and a parent. But she's got a relationship with him. Going off what I have read so far. That's weird. Why is that a thing? It's not even explained why she doesn't have a bad relationship with him. One of the best things about Charlie is he doesn't have her. This line on page 14. At the end, she's saying, like, at the end of the page, it's her first day at school, and she, like, got the map and her schedule, and she's, like, getting ready, like, she's preparing herself to go do this. No one was going to bite me. No one was going to bite me. And then when she's in the lunchroom for the first time and she sees the Cullens, she's, like, jaw on the floor, like, oh my god, these people are beautiful. Like, what the fuck? She's talking about how there's 5 of them, there's trays of food in front of them that they haven't even touched. They're not, like, gawking at her. Egotistical, okay. She's like, but it was none of these things that caught and held my attention. They didn't look anything alike. Why is that shocking? Okay, she doesn't know these people at all. Like, they're just people at this school. She doesn't know anybody. This is her first day at the school. She knows nobody. Okay, do you expect everybody in this town to look alike? Like, you have no idea at this point that they're siblings. They're all adopted siblings, whatever. And then we meet Mike, and she calls him a golden retriever, which I think is really, really funny because he really is. And that's another thing about this book is that, like, every male character that we meet, like the main male characters, except for the Cullens, obviously, well, everybody's obsessed with her. All the boys want her, and I guess it kind of does make sense because I don't know, because she, like, that's the thing, like, she describes herself as this very average-looking girl, and she's very average. She's not sporty, she's, like, you know, got really white skin. She's very average, and yet everybody's obsessed with her. Another thing that is coming up is her mom emails her. Do they not have cell phones? I'm confused. We're gonna have to watch out for that. Are there cell phones in this book? But in this part, he hangs up his gun belt and he keeps it loaded. She mentions that he keeps it loaded, but when she was a child, he never did. He always took out the bullets. I guess he considered me old enough now not to shoot myself by accident and not depressed enough to shoot myself on purpose. That's kind of heavy to just throw in there. There's a moment where he introduces himself. He says, "Hello, my name is Edward Cullen. I didn't have a chance to introduce myself last week. You must be Bella Swan." And she's like, "How did you know my name?" And he's like, "Everyone's been talking about you. Everyone's been excited for you to arrive in this small town." It's like this awkward moment because she's like, "I meant, why did you call me Bella?" And he's like, "Do you prefer Isabella?" She's like, "No, I like Bella, but I think Charlie, I mean my dad, must call me Isabella behind my back." I highly doubt that. He calls her Bells and Belle. I highly doubt he goes around to people and says, "Oh, my daughter Isabella." He just says, "Oh," and looks, and they both like look away awkwardly. Like, yeah, that was awkward. She caused that awkwardness. So far, Bella is pessimistic and it's triggering. Edward, charming as fuck. I love him. That's the end of chapter 2. I'm gonna go do some shit. I'll probably read later tonight, so. Just finished chapter 6. Now that Edward's being nice, Bella's acting like any young girl with a crush. She's excited to go to school to see him, and she's like feeling ridiculous, like trying to talk herself out of it because she thinks that there's no way Edward Cullen could be interested in him, in her. There's a part where Charlie puts the chains on her tire, and because I wasn't used to being taken care of. I was talking earlier about how like I'm really confused about the dynamic of the relationship with either of her parents, to be quite honest, because the way that she like calls her dad Charlie and like how she talks about him or thinks when it comes to him, like it's just like she has a bad relationship with him, but he's like a really nice guy, so I don't see why she would. And then with Renee, her mom, she mentions how like her and her mom are like best friends, but then she's gonna say something like she's not used to being taken care of. What's that all about? Like, what do you mean you're not used to being taken care of? I'm confused. Anyway, after the car accident, where Tyler almost hit her, but Edward saved her life, she's at the hospital, and first of all, the difference between the movie and the book is extreme in this scene, because the movie, she goes to the hospital, and she's just like sitting there, and like Carlisle comes over, and he like chucks her over, and he's like, "Yeah, you're good." In the book, she's like strapped to a stretcher and like taken to the hospital in an ambulance, and she's taken into like the ER and looked over. She's got like a neck brace on. It's like a whole big deal. And Edward's there the entire, like he rode in the ambulance, and like he's sitting there next to her bed. He's like joking with her, talking with her, and all that stuff. And Carlisle walking in was just as much of a scene as it was in the movie. Then a doctor walked around the corner, and my mouth fell open. He was young, he was blonde, and he was handsomer than any movie star I'd ever seen. Then the gaslighting that happens, this is when Bella goes to Edward, and she's like, "What the hell was that? Like, what did I just see? How did that even happen?" In the movie, it's funny because Edward in the movie says it's called an adrenaline rush. Maybe you should Google it. So, he's such an asshole. So, Shimanyo. Let's go eat some cake. Or what's that? Oh, Edward and his gaslighting. He's like, "What do you think happened?" And she's like, "I don't know, like, you weren't anywhere near me, and then all of a sudden you were, and then the van was going to crush us, and your hands and your shoulders left dents in the cars." And the words are just tumbling out of her mouth. And she's like, I don't know. Like, how do I explain this? This is why she's asking him, "What the fuck was that?" He says, You think I lifted a van off of you? I was like, nobody will believe that, you know. Is he gaslighting? Oh my god. I just realized my pajamas were laying on my bed. And then he, like, after that whole incident, he goes back to, like, not talking to her and just ignoring her completely. Like, she even says hi to him and he just completely ignores her. And so she's like, okay, so I guess this is it then. Suddenly, I think somebody, like, asked her prom, which, by the way, every freaking boy is asking her to prom, which, of course, he finally acknowledges her. He's like, what, are you finally speaking to me again? Like, no, not really. Oh, what the fuck then? So she's like, then what do you want? And he says, I'm sorry. I'm being very rude, I know, but it's better this way, really. Something that Bella says a lot is holy, I don't know if it's crow or, I think it's crow, holy crow? It happens a lot in this book, she says that a lot. Holy crow, what does that even mean? Like, one of the men that's completely infatuated with Bella. He was putting together a trip to the beach, to La Push, baby. This is when she meets Jacob. Jacob is 15 years old. She meets him, he tells her the scary story about the cold ones and werewolves. He's like telling her like the myths and legends of his tribe, and he's like talking about werewolves, and he's like, the cold ones are the natural enemy to werewolves. Bella says, werewolves have enemies? Bella has never heard of werewolves and vampires? There's a scene where it's when all the boys are asking her to the dance coming up. Tyler, who is the one that almost hit her with his car, they're like stuck in this like traffic that Edward created, by the way. And Tyler jumps out of his car and comes and knocks on the window. And he's like, hey, like, you want to go to the dance with me? And she's like, it's girls' choice. I'm like, yeah, I kind of was hoping that, like, you would ask me. And she's like, oh, I'm not even going. Like, I'm going to be going to Seattle that weekend. And Edward talks to her. I don't remember when it was. Edward came over, and when she got to school, he came over to talk to her. And this was after Tyler had asked her to the dance. He comes over to her car and he's like, hey, we really shouldn't be friends, but I'm tired of trying to stay away from you, so I'm not going to do that anymore. Which, okay. He asks if he can go to Seattle with her, and at first she's like, what? Why? And he's like, oh, I have to go anyway, like I had plans to go, and you know, I heard you talking about it, so I thought, why not? It's like this kind of moment that, like, I'm like, shh, there's so many times that he will say something about what somebody's feeling, what somebody's thinking, and she doesn't even question it. She's just like, yeah. I feel like I'm just reading teenage drama. Basically it's teenage drama, but I don't know. It's kind of fun. Right now, it's quite boring. It's just Bella going to school every day, trying to avoid Mike because he is just all over her. He wants her so bad. She does not want him. About 3 things I was absolutely positive. First, Edward was a vampire. Second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be, that thirsted for my blood. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. I just finished chapter 9. The start of chapter 7 is about, like, this dream that Bella has. Apparently, Bella is a clairvoyant. In her dream, Jacob turns into a werewolf. She's clairvoyant. It's insane. She has a CD player. But, so she has this nightmare, and it's the weekend, so she wakes up. Charlie's gone, he's gone fishing, so she decides to do some Google searches. Something that she keeps mentioning about her computer is that, like, these pop-up ads keep coming up. I don't remember computers having pop-up ads. What's really funny is that in her search, the promising site is vampires A through Z. She finally decides that, like, it doesn't matter if he's a vampire or not. It doesn't matter what he is. She doesn't know what he is, but it doesn't matter because she just loves him. Well, she likes him so much. And then Mike's getting a little handsy. Mike's tucking the hair behind the ear. uncomfortable. He asks her out, and she's like, no, Jessica likes you, and I'm not starting shit. I'm not stepping on toes. That's not my thing. He seems a little upset, but he's like, all right, bet. So he goes after Jessica. Yeah, he goes after Jessica. On Monday, when she goes back to school, it's a really nice day out. The sun's out. It's shining. Everyone's wearing shorts and tank tops and sandals. It's a great 60-degree day for Washington. And obviously the Cullens are not there. They can't be in the sun. The first thought isn't, oh, that just goes into my theory more. She doesn't think about that, but she just loses all hope. And she's like, he hates me. He's gone. He's never coming back, kind of thing. She's in the lunchroom. And, quote, the place was nearly filled. The Spanish had made us late, but there was no sign of Edward or any of his family. Desolation hit me with crippling strength. That's a bit dramatic, babes. He wasn't at school. He wasn't at school at all on Monday. It's the end of the fucking world. So she's trying to get over it. So she goes to read some Jane Austen books. She chooses Sense and Sensibility. The hero of the story happens to be named Edward, trying to get her mind off of Edward. So she turns to Mansfield Park, but the hero of that one is named Edmund. She said that was just too close. So she's very pessimistic and sad. Yeah! Is there an audio message? Stop it right now. Where's my bookmark? This is a moment.
Thank you, Kiki. Thank you for saying happy birthday to me. You're the best Kiki I ever had in my life. Thank you.
She's so sweet. I love her so much. Back to Twilight. Tuesday night. So we're going into Tuesday night. This is when she's going to Port Angeles with Jessica and Angela. It's like this really fun shopping trip. Like, she's actually really involved. In the movie, she wasn't involved at all. She was sitting there reading a book. And then one of the girls turns around and she's like, oh, what do you think of this one? And she's like, actually, like, this isn't my thing. I'm going to go find a bookstore. It's really awkward. It's so different. But in the book, she has a decent time with these girls. She's, like, totally into the whole, like, finding them a dress stuff. And then after they find a dress and accessories and all that, that's when they split up. Like, with Jessica and Angela, we're going to go to, like, the bay, like, to the docks or whatever. We're just going to, like, walk around. And Bella's like, I'm going to go try to find a bookstore. She likes bookstores. Bella gets lost. This is when the whole thing with the guys happens. Like, in the book, it's a lot more descriptive. And in the book, it's, like, it's a lot more scary. But of course, Edward comes and he saves the day. He's, like, driving her out of there, getting her out. And then he's like, I need you to distract me. She's like, okay. And she just kind of starts going on about Tyler telling everybody that he's taking her to prom, apparently. And then she asks him if he's better, and he says, not really. And she says, what's wrong? And he says, sometimes I have a problem with my temper, Bella. That is a red flag. And they have this cute little dinner scene. The main subject at dinner is how one can read minds. Hypothetically, of course. Oh, and then there's this moment, like, okay, there's a few moments. When they're sitting there at the table eating dinner, and there's one moment where she tries, like, she reaches for a hand, he pulls away, so whatever. And then she tries it again. And she actually does, like, touch the back of his hand. And then he pulls away. And then he says, that's twice now. Let's not try for 3. Agreed? Excuse the fuck out of me? Oh, and then right after that, because she's like, how did you find me? And he goes, I followed you to Port Angeles. Okay, that's 3 now. We're at 3 red flags, bro. This isn't looking good. You've got anger issues, you're a stalker, and you say things like, that's twice now, let's not try for 3. Agreed? Ugh, nope. I'm walking home. The quote at the end of chapter 9, that's the iconic, about 3 things I was absolutely positive. In that, she says, second, there was a part of him, and I didn't know how potent that part might be. The word potent in that sentence is a little awkward, and I find that actually happens a lot within the book. There's, like, words that are used that feels really awkward. So there's this moment too at the end of chapter 8. Edward pulled out through the traffic, apparently without a glance, flipping around to head toward the freeway. Now, he said significantly, it's your turn. He said significantly? How do you say something significantly? But now we're in chapter 9, and chapter 9 is the car ride with Edward home from Port Angela. This is when she finds out he's a vampire. This is when he tells her that he's a vampire. And it's very nonchalant, it's very relaxed, it's very... In the movie, it's really funny because in the movie, they walk out into the forest and she's like, I know what you are. And he's like, say it out loud. Say it. There's fear from Bella and there's like anger from Edward in this moment in the movie. But in the book, like during the car ride when she finds out that he's actually a vampire, it's very nonchalant. It's very like, it's like a normal conversation. This is what happened over the weekend. Like I went to the beach and Jacob Black told me these stories. And he's like, but then I realized that it doesn't matter. And he's like, what? It doesn't matter. And then she's like, oh, I'm right. And he's like, it doesn't matter. And then there's the whole, how old are you? 17. How long have you been 17? A while. And then there's, okay, so when they went to the restaurant, she didn't have a jacket and it had gotten colder. And so Edward noticed that she was cold, so he gave her his jacket. Bella mentions that there's like a smell to it. And it's not necessarily cologne, but like maybe his scent or whatever. And then when he's dropping her off at home, he's teasing her. He's absolutely fucking teasing her. Calls her again. And she turns around and he goes, sleep well. And he's like really close to her face. He says, Bella. I turned and he was leaning toward me, his pale, glorious face just inches from mine. My heart stopped beating. Sleep well, he said. His breath blew in my face, stunning me. It was the same exquisite scent that clung to his jacket, but in a more concentrated form. Is she smelling animal blood? What is the scent? And why is it on his jacket as well as his breath? It's gotta be fucking animal blood. That's the only explanation. But she's dazzled by this animal blood. And here's another example of the words awkwardly used. It says, I reached for the key mechanically, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. Automatically would have worked just fine. I mean, I guess mechanically works, but it's awkward. Is that not awkward? Like, I find that so awkward. Mechanically. But apparently, Bella is not the only one that's clairvoyant in this universe. Jessica is also clairvoyant because as soon as Bella sits down in the kitchen, because she walks in, she's like, hey Charlie, Dad. He's like dazzled by the animal blood. And Charlie's like, you good? I have to go call Jessica. And he's like, you were just with her? She's like, yeah, I left my coat in her car. I just want to make sure that she brings up to school tomorrow. And he's like, you literally just left her. Like, give her some time to get home. And he's like, oh, right. So she gets into the kitchen, sits down, the phone rings, Bella answers it, and it's Jessica. Wow. And then it ends with the iconic 3 things I was absolutely positive. And third, I was unconditionally and irrevocably in love with him. It's been, how long has she been with Charlie now? Maybe like, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say a month. She's already in love. I really love reading this and seeing the differences between the book and the movie. Bella being much more expressive and much more human in the book. In the movie, the scene where she's like, so you can read minds, and they're in the restaurant and Edward's like, sex, money, cats. It's such an awkward scene. Like, why would you do that? That is so awkward. The restaurant scene in the book is so much more well done than the movie. It's almost 3 a.m. I just finished chapter 13. Chapter 10 kicks off with Bella being like, I feel like last night was a dream. She says, I clung to the parts I couldn't have imagined, like his smell. I was sure I could never have dreamed that up on my own. You mean the smell of animal blood? No. Definitely can't dream that up on your own. I pulled the jacket onto my lap, pushing my arms through the 2 long sleeves, curious to see if the scent possibly be as good as I remember. It was better. She really loves this scent of animal blood. After their little rendezvous in Port Angeles, they're now suddenly a couple. Edward picks Bella up for school. They end up going to school together. Jessica obviously wants to know every single detail, everything. She wants to know everything. She's excited because Bella has the attention of the house going to school. But Jessica's like asking her these questions, which Bella was prepared for because Edward told her that Jessica was going to ask her these questions. Jessica asks if Bella likes Edward, and Bella says that she does more than he does her. And Edward, obviously being able to read minds, reading Jessica's mind, he knows that she said this, and he's like, why do you think that? Bella says, well, aside from the obvious, sometimes I can't be sure. I don't know how to read minds, but sometimes it seems like you're trying to say goodbye when you're saying something else. Edward says, what do you mean the obvious? Bella says, well, look at me. I'm absolutely ordinary. But you didn't hear what every human male in this school was thinking on your first day. I remember reading this for the first time and really being like, yeah, that's gonna be me. It wasn't me. So in their questioning of each other, Bella asks Edward, why did you go to that Goat Rocks place last weekend to hunt? Charlie said it wasn't a good place to hike because of bears. Bella is unbelievably daft sometimes. Bella asks Edward if hunting is something that she might get to see. This is just, to prove the point that she's not very smart sometimes, because why? This is technically, he's a hunter. Edward is a hunter, and she is the prey. She is literally his perfect prey. And she's like, oh, well, let me just be present. No, you may not be present during that activity. Mike's getting a little upset about Bella and Edward hanging out together. Mike says, I don't like it. Bella says, you don't have to. Period. Edward takes Bella home. Yeah. The Blacks show up. Edward's like, oh, complications. I'll see you later, Bella. Billy is not happy at all with the fact that Bella is hanging out with Edward Cullen, giving her dirty looks, which I think is really inappropriate. Stupid, but she just got home. Charlie just got home, so she's like, oh, let me prepare some food. The Blacks had already eaten, so Bella says, how about you, Charlie? I called over my shoulders, I fled around the corner. She literally just called him Charlie to his face. So much for not being allowed to call him Charlie to his face. The amount of times that Bella obsessively talks about how gorgeous and beautiful Edward is okay, we get it. You don't have to say it over and over and over again. I understood from the very beginning of the book that he is gorgeous. Okay. Everybody can be like you, Bella. Instead of going to Seattle, Edward is taking Bella somewhere special. Chapter 13, first of all, is giant. Second of all, Chapter 13 is the Meadow City. Supposedly, this is where the whole book was centered around. This is Stephenie Meyer. I think I heard a long time ago that Stephenie Meyer had a dream, and her dream was the Meadow Sea. And that's how her book got started. She wrote down this dream and then just created the book around that. This scene is extensive for no reason. And it is the most exhausting chapter I feel like I've ever read in my life. Edward is exhausting. Bella describes this scent that she loves so much again. As I had just that once before, I smelled his cool breath in my face. Sweet, delicious, the scent made my mouth water. She really loves this scent. this is when things start to go downhill, right? Things were kind of okay at first. Like he started sparkling. She was like, oh my gosh, you're beautiful. Then they're like chilling in the meadow, talking. She's smelling his breath. And then this is when it goes downhill. Edward starts saying like, I should have left long ago, I should leave now, but I can't stay away from you. This is when he explains to her that her blood is like his own personal form of heroin. Bella asks, does that happen often? And Edward starts to explain a little bit about what his brothers have gone through. I don't know if back in 2005, mates were a thing in fantasy books, but they're mates. I'm getting whiplash in this chapter. It's crazy. This chapter makes you see that Edward really is a bad guy. He's not the good kind. Rethinking all of my past decisions, my loyalties. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb. What a stupid lamb, I sighed. What a sick, masochistic lion. Iconic. At the end of chapter 13 is also the kiss scene. This is also when Edward puts Bella on his back and he runs with her. Bella gets motion sickness from it. Edward says, are you still faithful to the run, or was it my kissing expertise? You literally pecked her. I'm so sure it wasn't that. That's bold of you to assume that it was. You're intoxicated by my very presence. That whole chapter 13 is insane to me. It's whiplash. He's bipolar. But also I'm really confused by the fact that Edward is supposedly like 100 years old or more. And acts like he's 16. That whole meadow scene was insane. I had so many emotions throughout that whole chapter. At first, I was like, cute. Weird that he's glittering, but this is cute. It's cute. They're getting close. Now he's going on a rampage. That's weird. Now he's being nice again. Okay. Now he's being threatening? I'm kind of scared. Then he started being cocky, and it was just so out of character. The downfall of my feelings for Edward throughout this book. It's really disappointing. I finished. I'm done. I sat here for 4 hours and finished this book. I was dedicated. So when they get back to Bella's house, Edward, she asks him to stay, and of course he obliges her. Edward just makes his way into the house, like no questions asked. He's just like he's been there before. You spied on me? But somehow I couldn't infuse my voice with the proper outrage. I was flattered. Why would that flatter you? He's stalking you. Bella asks him, how often did you come here? Edward says, I come here almost every night. You're interesting when you sleep. It's not creepy. Not at all. Bella notices him being very touchy now, and close. And Bella says, how can it be so easy now? This afternoon, and Edward says, it's not easy, but this afternoon I was still undecided. I am sorry about that. It was unforgivable for me to behave so. Yes, it was unforgivable. Edward's explaining to Bella about these human feelings that he's feeling now all of a sudden that Bella's in his life, and one of those things being jealousy. And then he goes into talking about when he's watching her sleep, and he tells her, as you were sleeping you said my name. You spoke it so clearly, at first I thought you'd woken, but you rolled over restlessly and mumbled my name once more inside. The feeling that coursed through me then was unnerving, staggering, and I knew I couldn't ignore you any longer. Mates? Edward starts talking about Rosalie and Emmett and how they'll get married soon. They get married over and over again. Like, the younger that they can pretend to be, like, the longer they can stay in one place, and how Rosalie and Emmett, as a couple, get married, and it happens a lot. Bella says, you said that Rosalie and Emmett will get married soon. Is that marriage the same as it is for humans? Edward says, is that what you're getting at? Edward says, yes, I suppose it is much the same. I told you most of the human desires are there, just hidden behind more powerful desires. Was there a purpose behind your curiosity? And Bella says, well, I did wonder about you and me someday. Edward says, I don't think that that would be possible for us. And Bella says, because it would be too hard for you if I were that close. Oh, we're not talking about marriage. We're talking about some different desires. Edward pretty much tells Bella that it would never happen because she's too fragile. Are you sure about that? Edward explains that she's just so soft and so fragile. He says, I have to mind my actions every moment that we're together so that I don't hurt you. I could kill you quite easily, Bella, simply by accident. That just doesn't make any sense. But whatever, moving on. Edward stays the night. Bella has this habit of waking up in the morning and thinking that everything that happened the day before was just a dream. Edward tells her that Bella said she loved him in her sleep. Bella says, you knew that already. Edward says, it was nice to hear just the same. And then Bella says, I love you. They literally, just met. Breakfast time, he said, eventually, casually, to prove, I'm sure, that he remembered all my human frailties. So I clutched my throat with both hands and stared at him with wide eyes. Shock crossed his face. Kidding, I snickered. You said I couldn't act. He frowned in disgust. That wasn't funny. That really wasn't funny. That was honestly really weird. Why'd you do that? But Bella asks, so what are we gonna do today? And he's like, let's meet my parents. And Bella's like, what? What if they don't like me? And he's like, you have nothing to worry about. We have no secrets in our family. Everybody knows everything about each other. It'll be fine. They all love you. Well, most of them love you already. And so Bella goes upstairs. Bella goes upstairs to change. She changes into my only skirt, long, khaki-colored, still casual. I put on the dark blue blouse he'd once complimented. And a ponytail. So Bella puts on a long, khaki-colored skirt and a dark blue blouse and a ponytail. And she comes running downstairs. Edward's right there, so she runs right into him. And she says, I'm decent, and he tells her she's wrong. You are utterly indecent. No one should look so tempting. It's not fair. This blouse must be something special. Then that goes into their second kiss. Bella literally fainted. So dramatic. And you're worried not because you're headed to meet a house full of vampires, but because you think those vampires want to prove you. Bella meets the family, meets the fam. It's cute. Rosalie and Emmett are not there, so she meets Carlisle and Esme. Bella meets Carlisle and Esme and Alice and Jasper. It's a great meeting. Alice is very comfortable right from the start. And then there's a grand piano right when you first walk into the home. There's a grand piano, and Bella is admiring it, and Esme's like, oh, do you play? And Bella's like, no, not at all. And Esme's like, oh, well, Edward does. I don't know if he told you. And Bella's like, no, he didn't tell me that. And then Esme tells Edward to play something, so he sits down and he starts playing something. And then Edward goes into this lullaby that Bella heard before because he started humming it when he stayed the night before. This lullaby makes her cry. She tears up. And Edward He touched the corner of my eye, trapping one I missed. He lifted his finger, examining the drop of moisture broodingly. Then, so quickly I couldn't be positive that he really did, he put his finger to his mouth to taste it. If I started crying, and the person that I was currently dating wiped my tear away and then licked his finger, I don't think that I would be dating that person anymore. That is odd. What was the reason? He gets to Edward's room and he tackles her into his couch. He doesn't have a bed because he doesn't sleep. He tackles her, and then Alice and Jasper come by and they're like, hey, like, there's gonna be a storm tonight, so let's play ball. And Edward's like, hell yeah. So Edward takes Bella back home so that she can change, as well as tell Charlie that she has a boyfriend, and that he's coming to pick her up for a date tonight. So when they get back to Bella's house, Jacob and Billy are there, the Blacks. They're on her doorstep, and Edward's pissed. Bella says, let me deal with this. Edward says, that's probably best. Be careful though, the child has no idea. Bella defends Jacob and says, Jacob is not that much younger than I am. He is a child. He's 15. He's a child. Billy is there pretty much just to tell Bella to stay away from Edward, cryptically saying, like, stay the hell away from Edward. Stay away from the Cullens. They're dangerous. You need to not be around them. Billy says, maybe it's none of my business, but I don't think that's such a good idea. And Bella says, you're right. It is none of your business. Period. Charlie gets home. Bella tells him about Edward. Charlie's suddenly a very overprotective father. Meets Edward. Bella and Edward get ready to go. Edward says, don't worry, I'll have her home early. She'll be safe with me, I promise. They play some baseball. And it's extraordinary. It's much more extraordinary in the book than it is in the movie. The movie felt kind of lame. In the book, it's actually really cool. And then that's when everything changes. Chapter 18. The Hunt. This is when the action begins. And this is when the action begins. We had all of this that was just a building of characters. And Alice sees the 3 vampires coming, and there's no time to take Bella away from the danger, so they kind of just have to pretend like she isn't there, like kind of hide her scent. Wind ruffles her hair. James gets a whiff of Bella, and they're like, oh, you have a human. You have a human. You have a snack. And the Cullens are like, nope, not a snack. Nope, she's with us. And because I guess Edward got protective, only Edward, doesn't matter that everybody else got protective, just that Edward got protective, James suddenly decided that he is going to kill Bella. So Edward, Emmett, and Alice, with Bella, go back to the Jeep while the rest of the Cullens entertain their guests. And Edward is just speeding off out of Forks, and Bella's like, what, where are you going? What is happening? And Edward's like, we gotta get out of here, we gotta get out of here now. And Bella's like, no, I need to go home, I need to go see Charlie, I need to, I can't just leave my dad. Bella freaks out, she's like trying to take the harness off, and Edward says, Emmett, and then Emmett traps her hands. So they're kidnapping her against her will. That's your solution, Edward, just to kidnap her. Bella starts throwing out some pretty ingenious ideas, and it's kind of shocking because she plays pretty dumb the rest of the time. But now all of a sudden she's very smart, and she's thinking better than 3 vampires who have lived for a very long time. Emmett's all for it. He's loving it. He's like, she knows what she's talking about. At the beginning of chapter 19, Bella has to play this role in order to get away from Charlie, in order to make sure that he's safe, and it is really sad. And he's not even angry, he's just so concerned about her, and he's like, you know, maybe you should just wait, like, give it some time, like, it's okay. It's literally heartbreaking. I don't want to end up trapped in a stupid, boring town like Mom. I'm not going to make the same dumb mistake she did. I hate it. I can't stay here another minute. Poor Charlie! That part of the plan works. Bella leaves, gets in the truck and drives away, crying hysterically, as she should be. While this is all happening, I'm sitting here thinking, why did this vampire, his name is James, why did James suddenly decide that she was the one that he was going to kill? Out of everybody, she was the one. And Bella actually voices this as well. Why did this James decide to kill me? There's people all over the place. Why me? Thank you. Edward tells her he's a tracker. He likes to hunt, I guess. Edward says, I'm not sure if there's anything I could have done to avoid this. Once he saw you, it is partially your fault. His voice was wry. If you didn't smell so appallingly luscious, he might not have bothered. He's not used to being thwarted, no matter how insignificant the object. So then that got me thinking, like, oh, so Bella's blood isn't just Edward's personal brand of heroin? And, again, Bella voices this same sentiment, says, I thought I didn't smell the same to the others as I do to you. Edward says you don't, but that doesn't mean that you aren't still a temptation to every one of them. If you had appealed to the tracker, or any of them, the same way you appealed to me, it would have meant a fight right there. Edward tells Rosalie to trade clothes with Bella, and Rosalie goes, what is she to me except a menace, a danger you've chosen to inflict on all of us? Whoa, bitch. I don't understand why Rosalie is so mad, so visibly and like physically mad at Bella just for being human. Like, that's a little over the top. I mean, it's not like Bella chose to be human, and it's not like at this point she's choosing to be a vampire either. Like, Bella's just there. She's just in love with the wrong guy. I don't know why Rosalie's so mad at her about that. Rosalie needs to calm the fuck down. This is when the cell phones get introduced. So, cell phones are a thing. It's a rich people thing. Edward and Bella are separated, and Edward, in this really weird goodbye, he actually just goes over to her, hugs her very tightly, kisses her really hard, and then leaves. No words said. Alice, Jasper, and Bella are in their own little group. Alice stepped through the front door and came toward me with her arms held out. May I? She asked. Bella says, you're the first one to ask permission. Which, funny enough, she is. I really like Alice. She's just really kind and like very outgoing. I love her character. They end up going to Florida. That was their whole plan. They go to Florida. Alice has some visions. Bella's like, oh yeah, that's a ballet studio. There's one that's not far from my mom's home. Plans change. Edward's gonna come to Arizona to be with Bella, and then they're gonna go somewhere far away to hide. And then Bella gets a call from her mom because she left a voicemail on her mom's phone saying like, hey, it's me, like I'm okay, just call me back at this number when you can, everything's fine, call me back. And so she gets a call, and it's her mom, but her mom just says, Bella, and Bella's like, it's fine, like, Mom, I'm fine. And then James gets on the phone, and he's like, if you don't want me to hurt your mother, you're gonna do exactly as I say. And of course, Bella does exactly as he says. She ends up getting away from Alice and Jasper. She ends up going to that ballet studio. Turns out her mom was not there. He was just using an old home video that he had stolen. And Bella at first is very relieved that nobody she loves is going to get hurt. And then the hunter, then James starts talking some shit, then Bella gets scared, and then he starts attacking her. It's brutal. He brutally attacks her. She's bleeding from her head. She has a broken leg, and he bit her. And Bella is like in and out of consciousness. The gang saves her. Carlisle, Alice, Emmett, Jasper, Edward. They're all there to save her. And when they realize that she's been bitten, it's like, oh, well, this is it. But then Carlisle's like, I mean, there is another way, like, you could try to suck the venom out of her. And in the movie, it's a very awkward scene of Edward sucking the venom out of her hand, Bella going cross-eyed, Edward not being able to stop himself. It's a whole awkward, messy scene. In the book, Edward's like, okay, like, I don't think I can do it. Carlisle's like, either you will or you won't. Like, she's either going to turn or you're going to suck the venom out of her. Those are your choices. So Edward's like, right, fine, because he doesn't want her to turn, so he sucks the venom out of her, and he does it with no problem. No problem at all. He gets it out of her. When he stops, Carlisle's like, stay with me, Edward. And he's like, I'm good. Surprisingly, I'm good. Edward goes to the Edward. Bella goes to the hospital. Her mom's there. There's this whole story that she fell down 2 flights of stairs and out a window. Nobody's ever gonna fall out of a window like that. There's just no way. Especially if you're falling downstairs. At the hospital, Edward brings up the fact that maybe, like, they shouldn't be together. He doesn't necessarily say it. He doesn't necessarily say, like, you and I should split. He just mentions it, like, I mean, because Bella's mom is like, oh, well, we're going to go live in Jacksonville and you can come with us and it's going to be perfect and you're going to love it. Bella's like, no, like, I'm staying in Forks, Mom. And Renee's like, what? You want to stay, but you hate Forks. And Bella's like, oh, well, I don't anymore. And then Edward's like, you could just go to Jacksonville. And Bella's like, well, then what are you gonna do? Like, you would have to stay inside all day. And he's like, I wouldn't go with you. Like, I would stay in Forks. And she has like a freaking panic attack about it. And Edward has to calm her down. And he's like, it's fine. Like, I'm not leaving you. It's cool. It was just a mention. But Bella's obsessed with Edward. So any mention of it, and she feels like she's gonna die. And he keeps reassuring her that he will stay with her as long as she wants, as long as it keeps her safe. And that's that. And then there's an epilogue where they go to prom, which in the book Edward surprises her with it instead of it being something that they just go to. She has no idea that they're going. Alice is doing her makeup, her hair, puts a beautiful dress on her, and Bella's like, what is happening? Where are we going? And then they go to prom, and Bella's pissed because she is not a prom person. She doesn't like prom, she doesn't like dancing. But Edward forced her, of course. Why would he ask, you know? But this is something that comes up. He tells her that he doesn't want her to miss out on any human experiences. And Bella's like, I wouldn't have been missing out on anything. I would never have gone to prom in the first place if I knew you or I didn't know you. I'm not a prom person. Jacob does show up at prom as well. But in the movie, when Jacob shows up at prom, he shows up to be the warner, to be like, stay away from Edward, stay away from the Collins. They're not good for you. But in the book, Jacob shows up to be the messenger. He is there for his father. His father is paying him to go there and tell Bella to break up with Edward and to stay away from the Collins. And that, quote, they'll be watching her. There is a part that I left out of that, a little bit of information that needs to be added. At the end of the book, Bella actually does voice that she wants to become a vampire. When they were at the hospital, Bella asks Edward why he didn't just let the venom spread and turn her, and Edward's like, why would I do that to you? I'm not going to become a vampire. Why would I do that to you? And Bella wants to have more of a conversation about it, but Edward's like, no, we're not having this conversation. It gets dropped, but then at the prom, Edward is like, what did you think that you were getting all dressed up for? And Bella reluctantly tells him that she thought maybe he had changed his mind, and Edward was like, really? Like, you really want this? And she's like, yeah, like, I really do. And he's like, no, like, it's not happening. I'm not doing that to you. And Bella's like, well, if you're not going to do it, somebody will. Alice, Carlisle, somebody will do it for me. The conversation gets dropped. That was something that needed to be included because that actually goes into the rest of the series. So I just had to add that real quick. This was a roller coaster. I, at first, hated Bella, loved Edward, and now I hate Edward and I love Bella. I don't necessarily love Bella, but I'm rooting for her. I'm on her side. Edward can fuck off. It was really interesting to reread this. I do have the rest of the series, so I am going to continue the series. I'm going to do a video on the new moon. We're living and we're learning. This video was quite long, to be quite honest. But it's my first video doing this whole concept, so I was going through the motions, trying to figure out how exactly I was going to do everything. Now that I know, though, I think it'll be easier for the next book to like go through it and in a shorter amount of time. There was a lot of footage for me to go through for this, let me just tell you. Not only do I love to talk, I love to talk about books. So there was a lot of video I had to go through that I had to cut down. But if you have watched this entire video, I applaud you and I appreciate it. This is really exciting for me to read and talk about it. I don't have book friends, so to feel like I am talking to somebody about books that either they love or hate, I don't care. Honestly, I love just to talk about it. So if you did watch this video all the way through, if you agreed or you disagreed, if whatever your thoughts, I would love to hear them. I would love to read them. Please tell me your thoughts. Yeah, thanks for reading with me. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb. What a stupid lion. Oh, I meant lamb. What a stupid lion. What a sick masochistic lamb.